William Gross is with Janus Capital. We welcome all of you on Bloomberg Radio and Bloomberg Television. William Gross has been unconstrained, which has been a tough battle given the back and forth and the cross currents of what's going on. Bill, I want to congratulate you on even surviving to the end of the work given what's going on. What's the biggest challenge of managing money given global central bank theory?
Well, the fact, Tom, and thank you for the compliment, we're up 4% for the year, and so I'll take that for 2/3 of a year. But the biggest challenge is obviously what the central banks are doing in terms of producing near 0% interest rates, and in many cases negative interest rates, and the judging going forward of what they may continue to do. We know that the BOJ on Thursday night will probably have a special surprise for us, and we know with near 100% certainty that the MPC in the UK will initiate some program in August, and so yields move lower and lower and lower to near unfathomable types of levels. The trick is to know when they stop and to get out before the music stops.
I want to get to helicopter money in a minute, but this is important. All of our viewers and listeners, whatever their walk of life, are certain that we see a great distortion in Bill Gross's world. You have said this will go on for years. Rogoff, Reinhardt, Gross have all said the duration of this distortion is remarkable. Do you see any indication it ends anytime soon?
Well, no, not yet, because the objective of central banks is to produce not only real growth, but nominal growth, and that's why we hear about inflation all of the time, certainly from Japan and from the ECB. Countries and global economies need nominal growth in my opinion, 3 to 4 to 5% in order to pay bills that were incurred over the prior 5, 10, 15 years. So the objective is, a 4 to 5% nominal rate of growth, and we won't see higher interest rates until we get to that level. We may never get to that level based upon some of the current conditions in terms of productivity and economic growth forecasts going forward in real terms that are 1 to 2% at best in the United States. But we'll have to see. If they don't succeed at generating nominal GDP growth, Tom, they're going to stay where they are.
Right. When you look at this bill, one of the basic rules is you have to clear markets. Back to Friedrich Hayek in the 1940s, you've got to clear markets. We see Deutsche Bank struggling with clearing out their challenges. We can look at the entire economy of Japan as another example. If we are reticent to take the tough medicine, what institution is going to drive that debate forward? Or is it just the market vigilantes, the bond vigilantes like Bill Gross, that's going to tell the authorities when to clear markets?
Well, markets, to my way of thinking, are a function, yes, of monetary policy, and that's what we talked about for the last few minutes, but also of fiscal policy, and together they come together to generate nominal GDP. I think monetary policy has gone about as far as it can go, and bond vigilantes are certainly not a factor in driving the forward-looking behavior of Mario Draghi or Janet Yellen. So going forward, and I think we're beginning to see this, Tom. We see this in Japan, and we see it in China, and we see a little bit of it in the political atmosphere here in the United States during the conventions. Fiscal stimulus lies ahead, and the combination of monetary as it is now and perhaps more fiscal stimulus going forward, it is something that we should look forward to, I think.
Bill, I think when you were clipping coupons, rather, not licking postage stamps, you did that later, but when you were clipping coupons in the PIMCO mailroom a few years ago, you dreamed about owning a helicopter. We all may get it with helicopter money. Olivier Blanchard says it's a scam. Other people are more calm about it. Where do you fit in here? Do you think helicopter money as a fiscal proxy can work?
I think it is a fiscal proxy, and that's a good phrasing of what helicopter money is. People view it as dropping actual cash to citizens, from helicopters, and that's really not the way it works. It works through fiscal policy. So to the extent that helicopter money, generates some type of fiscal stimulus, Keynesian fiscal stimulus, I think it's a positive. I would not claim that where we are now in terms of monetary policy and the combination of 0% interest rates and the thrust of helicopters going forward is really a positive for capitalism, because it's not. We have to get off of this addiction, at some point, because capitalism, to my way of thinking, cannot thrive. It may survive, but it can't thrive at 0% interest rates, because the savings function, which ultimately leads to the investment function, is destroyed.
When we do this, and when we get back to the beginning of normal, do you assume smooth glide paths, measured vectors where you and Janice can work in real time to adapt and adjust, or do you just assume it's some brutal jump conditions?
I would favor the latter, although I don't know, and I would hope for the former. But I think while the adjustment going down in terms of yields has been rather gradual over the past 5 or 6 or 7 years, I would think some type of step function on the other side would probably be the norm. A step function, not necessarily in terms of interest rates, because they're still going to be controlled by central banks, but a step function in terms of risk assets and the desertion of the investment market from them.
What would be your advice to Chair Yellen? What we've certainly seen in the last number of days is good corporate earnings. I think of United Technologies, DuPont, even McDonald's with their struggles doing okay, Apple doing okay according to the surveillance interviews we did today. It's a pretty good America, and yet she's central banker to this troubled world. What would be your counsel to her for September and then into next year?
Well, I would suggest, and perhaps we're going to see some of this in August, Tom. You'll probably be out there at Jackson Hole, and we'll hear something more. But, I think Janet Yellen, not to be critical, but you're asking me, and so I will be, as well as all central bankers, are fixated on the fact that the lower and lower interest rates go, the higher and higher asset prices go, and ultimately that redounds to the benefit of the real economy. I don't think it does. And so I'd say, Janet, get off of it. Get off of this fixation of lower interest rates providing a push for economic growth, because the evidence is, despite what you talked about in terms of Apple and corporate profits, the evidence is that nominal GDP has only grown by 3.3% over the past several years, and real growth is down below 2. And so, that is not normal. Something must be wrong. And so get off of your old model and get into the real world of common sense.
Right. Here's my real world, Bill Gross. I need some financial advice, and you're the only one that's going to give it to me. Is dividend growth a proxy for yield? For high yield, it can be, because dividends, although we don't believe it, are subject to reduction as well as increase. But a dividend yield relative to a risk asset with a 30-year duration is a decent proxy, yes.